Welcome back to another episode of The Canon. I'm your host, Terry, and today I'm doing a quick little editorial on Captain America Civil War. So, this is going to be controversial. Maybe. I don't know who will watch it. But I just want to do this once and for all because I always have this argument and I just want to put it to audio or whatever so I can direct people to come here so I can stop having this argument. And that is about Captain America Civil War and the plot holes that it has. Now, I was very excited for Civil War. I'm a big fan of DCU and MCU. I'm not one of those fanboys. So I was very excited for it. I was really hyped to see how they could adapt it. I was hyped to see Black Panther, Spider-Man, all that, just like everybody else. I went opening night, Thursday, packed house, all that good stuff. And so I came away blown away. I loved the movie. I had some issues with the pacing, and I still guess I kind of do, but overall, I was just amazed like everybody else. Airport scene, all that good stuff. Then, as I continued to watch it, I ended up buying it when it came out, and then it ended up on Netflix. So, seeing it, it's been around so many places. I always take it with me when we take college trips at my job, and I take it, for overnight. So, I've seen it many times. The more I see it, the more the plot holes with Zemo have stood out to me. And I think, more than anything, the plot holes revolve around Zemo's plan. And so it has affected the movie for me, unfortunately. I still think it's a good movie. But for me, the plot holes really just kind of ruin everything else. And, I watch it still, but I just don't watch it the same. But the airport scene, seeing the characters interact, all that stuff is still cool. So I just wanted to get those disclaimers out the way. So getting into it, I will definitely admit up top also, people have different ideas, just like spoilers, people have different idea what plot holes are. I still think there's more of a objective definition of it, but people at least I would say plot holes affect people differently. Like I said, some people that I've talked to about this can acknowledge it and be like, I don't care, it's still a great movie. Now, they might be a fanboy, or they say, yeah, you're right, it just didn't affect me. Like, I wasn't worried about that part. Other parts of the movie were just so much stronger for me. I could get that. I'm not telling you to dislike Civil War. All I'm telling you is that we have to admit these plot holes are there. And so, let's get into it. It's Zemo. It's all about Zemo. And I'm gonna bounce around. I didn't write it down in a neat list. I'm gonna bounce around. So Zemo, his whole plot, as we know, was to get the Avengers to fight each other and blah, blah, blah. Now, one of the very first plot holes that I realized about his whole thing was, once he, gets these people to fight and, he's got Captain America, whatever, heading towards, wherever the fortress was or whatever. And, Iron Man is kind of licking his wounds. Zemo then releases to the world, or not released to the world. He calls the, maid for the hotel, tells her, to come bring the breakfast so she could, then discover the dead body, which is actually the doctor that, I guess it's SHIELD. I don't know. Whatever the CIA, the doctor that the CIA agent Ross and them called in to talk to Bucky. And so he does that so they could put it on TV so Stark can figure out, oh crap, Captain America was telling the truth. I need to go over there and see what's happening. And that way it'll come to a clash once Tony and the Winter Soldier are all there. So, okay, that was the plan. Except the doctor in question was played by one of the Russos. I don't remember which Russo it was, but it was one of the Russos actually played the dead body. The Russos look nothing like Zemo. Absolutely nothing like Zemo. And so my thing was, if he's the most, cause I don't remember the exact words, but it's something to the effect of he's the most renowned psychologist or doctor or whatever in the world, top, elite that we brought in to work with Bucky. If he is the top elite doctor, best-selling author, professor, whatever you want to call it, and the CIA brought him in. Nobody said he looks nothing like that doctor. Or you could have Googled a picture. I'm sure there's a picture in one of his books. You could have checked his Facebook. Like, nobody stopped and said, that guy that says he's the doctor, he doesn't look like any any of the pictures I saw. Or I read his book last year. That doesn't look like him. Or I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be like 30 years older than that. Whatever the case. He just walks in and pretends to be the doctor, in which he gets to Bucky and then, of course, triggers him. So that's a huge plot hole for me. That's a huge plot hole. Now, that's one people could forgive, but it's definitely there. Moving on. So Zemo dresses himself up like Bucky, which causes the whole plot where everybody's chasing after Bucky, and that forces Captain America to defend Bucky. Okay, so they kind of at the same time when they find the body, they say they find prosthesis that basically approximate to looking like Bucky Barnes. And I'm like, what? Okay, that's a throwaway. They addressed it, but did no one explain how he was able to make himself look like Bucky? Like, when we did kind of a zoom up or whatever, the enhanced picture they first showed with Bucky at the UN meeting, you could kind of see it look like Bucky. But you had to believe they had some more clear visuals of that. And in that visual, he looked just like Bucky Barnes. So then you have to explain, how did Zemo make like lifelike skin features to look like Bucky Barnes to the point that everybody thought it was him? And they just throw it away. Oh, he had some makeup and prosthesis. Like, what? That's not enough. And so people might want to say, okay, well, they didn't know it was Bucky, but it looked kind of like Bucky. They already didn't like Bucky, so that was enough for them to go chase him. Okay, I could believe that. Fine. My thing, and I Googled it. I don't remember the exact names of the places. I think Vienna's where the UN the meeting was being held. But the place where they picked up Bucky, and I Googled it, it was like 5+ hours away. And so you're telling me that they believe Bucky was somehow at the UN meeting, infiltrated it, blew it up, and got all the way back to the shop for groceries within the span of a few hours? I mean, because we see they blow it up. T'Challa's outside talking to Scarlett Johansson. It moves pretty quick. Steve's already at the bar, and then he goes to head towards where Bucky is. It's 5 hours away. I'll admit, I don't think they don't give us the exact timeline between, when they go to chase, Bucky and when that explosion happens. But even still, from the time of day and kind of the shots they show us, it seems like it happens with pretty close to each other. How did he travel 5+ hours in that span of time? And and he's traveled 5+ hours with his face and name being spread across the whole US, across the whole world, and nobody saw him on a train or a bus or if he drove, I'm sure it'd take even longer than 5 hours. So I don't know. It's just, I don't know. That was another thing I didn't like. And then you got to talk about, how did Zemo get into the UN thing and blow it up with shouldn't they have a lot of security? But anyway, so moving on from that, the last main thing I would say is that Zemo had planned for the Winter Soldier, Captain America, and Iron Man to meet up. And to an extent, I would say that maybe you didn't need Captain America there, because if Iron Man showed up and Bucky and they saw the video, I guess, he could have killed Bucky, or Bucky could have killed him, and it would have, I think it still would have worked. But either way, there's this whole airport scene that we love. You have to imagine that wasn't part of Zemo's plan. And so for Zemo, things could have got really off the rails had anything happened. So, number one, Tony could have died, or Bucky could have died, or Cap could have died. More likely not Cap. Now, I already know people are going to say, he knew that they weren't going to kill each other. Look at what happened to Rhodey. Now, Rhodey should have died just by pure physics. He should have died, but he got paralyzed. It could have happened. That could have easily been Tony. Like, you can't sit here and tell me he knows every exact scenario that's going to happen within that airport fight, if he even knew it was going to happen. So to have a general assumption, they won't kill each other. Okay, but you don't know what could happen. And so Vision accidentally hits War Machine. That could have easily been Tony. Then Tony's paralyzed. Tony never makes it there. Plan over. Barnes is the number one person they're looking for. Barnes not only could have been caught by any of them, but Black Panther could have killed them. They never really say if he was going to take him to Wakanda to stand trial or whatever, but assuming how T'Challa is and thinking he killed his dad, he probably was planning on killing him. So let's say Black Panther got to him in that fight at some point and he killed Bucky. Plan over. Tony could still hate Cap, but plan over because they never make it there. Not only that, there's a point once they're heading to the Quinjet where Captain America tells Falcon and Bucky to go ahead, we'll hold them off. And then Falcon says, no, you go. Okay, that's how the movie's written. But let's just play the scenario out. It could have very easily been where Cap says no, like forces Falcon to go. Cap stays behind to help fight people off. Now Bucky and Falcon go, and then there's never there's never a point where Captain and Iron Man meet up for, this whole thing. Now again, Iron Man could have came and Falcon, I guess, could replace him, but it just wouldn't be the same. Now, if Iron Man ended up killing Bucky, then yeah, that could cause a rift that would, rip up the Avengers, but it just wouldn't be the same plan. You know what I mean? And so there's that. Then we see Vision and everybody that tried to stop them, and they could easily blew up the Quinjet, or they could have stopped them. And then again, nobody makes it there. There's no plan. And so the whole Zemo plan was basically, I got to get real lucky for everything to fall into place exactly the way I want it, for these exact people to show up at the exact time. Now, there's been movies where you've shown the villain to create the situation for that to happen. This is not the case. Zemo, it was just blind luck. It was just like, okay, I'm setting this up for all of them to come here, but I don't know exactly how it's going to work. Let's say there was no airport scene. Let's say, Cap and his crew was, Ant-Man and all of them. Let's say they just all went to the fortress, and then Iron Man and them decided to meet them there. And yeah, they could have fought there, but let's say that happened, and then he showed the tape, and then Tony is pissed off and wants to kill Bucky, but now his whole team is going to be like, whoa, Tony, we understand, but you need to calm down. So now you would basically have both teams against Tony, and that wouldn't really rip the Avengers up more so than it may bring them together. So it's just, it was too convenient. It was too convenient. And again, some people, they say, certain convenient things you just got to overlook in the movie. Doesn't mean it can't be a plot hole. And just because a plot hole doesn't mean it has to be significant to you. But all I'm saying is these things do exist. And so these things, and I know this is about to get rowdy, these things are more so plot holes than, say, the Martha scene in BVS. And that's the crazy part, is that people rallied and railed against this BVS scene with Martha. But yet we come to Civil War and it's just plot hole filled and people just, okay, whatever. And so, of course, that's fanboys, with preference. But if we really just look at it as just regular fans, what Martha in the scene tried to do, whether you liked it or not, it's very clear that it was symbolism. It wasn't like, I said the name, we're all good. It was very clear symbolism to symbolize, to remember the death of Bruce's parents, to think about taking a person's life, to realize that this alien that he thinks is a menace has his own mother, to, humanize Superman and really see him for an actual person, to remind Batman of why he became Batman, to prevent murder, not cause it, all those things. Now, you can not like the execution. You, definitely, I could say it wasn't executed the best. You could not like the execution, or you could even think the symbolism is silly, but it's not a plot hole. That is the psychological trigger that happened in Batman to keep him away. That's not a plot hole. But again, this isn't symbolism. This isn't anything. These are just facts of the matter with Civil War, and those more so are plot holes to me. Again, plot holes, you might not be significant to you. You might feel like the execution of the Martha scene was bad, and that's fine too. I'm not saying you have to hate Civil War or like BVS. I'm just saying I think the plot holes in Civil War just got to pass, and so that's kind of where I'm coming from. And there's probably a little more of them, but I want to stick with Zemo because I think that was the whole crux of the whole movie. When you're talking about things that they really kind of there's some convenience. There's some stuff like the whole doctor thing that just completely makes me think like, okay, they like y'all really, made a misstep here. So that was my thoughts though. But I would like to hear what everybody else thinks. Go to the comment section. Let me know. Sure you got a lot of thoughts. Thumbs up, subscribe, share it around. Remember, if you heard it, it's official canon.